Hi, everyone. I'm Bart Herbison, Executive Director of the Nashville Songwriters Association. Privileged to be the person doing the interviews for the Tennesseans, the story behind the song. And we're with a fascinating, smart, multi-talented, intriguing guy today named Larry Weiss. And I really mean that, Larry. I lose time when we sit down and talk. The story behind the song this week is Rhinestone, Cowboy.
Right.
And you got some traction with your version.
Right. Well, here's what happened. It was really interesting.
But it never...
It's really interesting. It's kind of a spiritual thing for me, too, because a lot of times we think we control stuff. We don't control squat. Because if we knew how everything was going to happen, everybody would be successful or not successful, you know? But I had a really good version of the song out. A lot of people thought it was going to be a hit. I didn't think it was going to be a hit because I didn't feel that I sold it as a singer. My version was very much in a Neil Diamond kind of a style, and it bothered me that I couldn't sing away from that. I felt I was like a poor man's Neil Diamond. It bothered me artistically. So, and I felt I really imitated him on that record a lot because I was a big fan of his at that particular time. So I didn't feel that I sold it. And I didn't, somehow, I said, I can't see on some marquee, Larry Weiss, Rhinestone Cowboy. It just didn't work together for me.
Right.
I didn't feel like it was the right MO. So in any event, I was getting a lot of play. I mean, for almost a year in California on various soft rock stations, on adult contemporary, they would not drop the song. Glenn heard it and flipped. He literally pulled to the side of the road and flipped. And this was after my publisher was showing my version of the song to everybody who was turning it down. So it's time for him to do another album, and Lambert and Potter were called to produce him. Dennis Lambert, Brian Potter. So they walk into the president of Capitol Records with my album under their arm. The president of Capitol Records is sitting in his office with my album on the desk, and Glenn is walking in with an album under my arm. Say, we have to do this song. This is my next song. So they begin to do the album. They cut 4 sides, including Rhinestone Cowboy. Then Glenn gets a call to do a telethon, muscular dystrophy telethon. And on the telethon, just with a guitar, he sings my song. Well, the biggest person in radio ever at that time was a fellow named Paul Drew. He was president of the RKO radio chain. He sees Glenn do the song, and he knew my record because it was out for so long. He calls up Capitol Records to find out if Glenn has recorded the song. He asks Capitol Records, could I have a reference dub? He gets a reference dub, he puts it on the air, and forces the record out. It wasn't like an album was completed, let's pick the single. It was like,
Man, that was meant to be.
I got chills in every time.
When you first heard it, sonically, I remember the first time I ever heard that record. I played it on vinyl. I was a disc jockey, and it just had a
big sound
to
it.
Every note, and the mix, and the arrangement, and you had to be wowed by that.
Well, it was. How can I put it? I was excited, and I was also frustrated that it wasn't my record.
Okay.
So it took me a little while to get over that, to be honest.
But looking back on it, you've got to love.
Yeah, I do. But it's just an artistic thing.
It was perfect. I think a little bit this way, a little bit that way. It wouldn't have been the monumental, sonically sounding. That's a perfect day in the studio.
It was, yeah, it was.
I mean, do you remember the day you wrote it? The idea?
I was working on it for a long time. I was stuck on one particular passage in the song.
Because Rhinestone Cowboy ends up being a country song, but
it really wasn't.
The Lonely Nights of Broadway. I mean, it's not in the way you do it. It's not. But there's Larry Weiss. It's you.
Well, yeah, it was a reflection on where I came from.
Right.
And I didn't realize that a lot of towns and cities in the country have a street called Broadway, particularly here in Nashville.
Right.
Yeah. But I remember it took me. I wrote most of the song in a week, and then it took me 3 months to write 2 lines. And it was those 2 lines that made Glenn do the song.
The lines were?
Well, in the first part of the song, it says, there's been a load of compromise on the road to my horizon. Excuse me. And the second part says, there'll be a load of compromising on the road to my horizon. Glenn heard those 2 phrases, and that's what made him record the song. He liked the philosophy of what the song was saying. I mean, he recognized it was a sing-along and all that stuff, and that's the lighter side of the song, but but he liked the philosophy of admitting that, well, it ain't going to be easy. The thing that was incredible for me, I couldn't make the Grammys where Glenn was given a Lifetime Award when he came out on stage. I couldn't make the Grammys. And I sat and watched television because sometimes you don't realize the impact of what you've done, because it's like you wrote the song next, you know. And although you know you have a big song with like Rhinestone Cowboy, but he walked out on that stage in Manuel's jacket, and that place blew up. I mean, it was such an eye opener for me. I said, well, I've written more than a song. I think I have an American anthem here.
Thank you so much, Larry.
My pleasure.
And this week for the Tennessean, the story behind the song of Rhinestone Cowboy.
There's been a load of compromising on the road to my horizon. But I'm gonna be where the light is shining on me, like a rhinestone cowboy riding.